Welcome to another episode of Moments Off the Mat. I'm Taylor Miller with USA Wrestling, and I've got Forrest Molinari joining me today. So thanks for taking the time. How are you?
Thanks for having me. What's good, girl?
Thanks. So how's everything been for you? We were just talking earlier, it's been months since you competed. You've also had some other life changes going on. How is life?
Life is good, but, this year definitely has been crazy. I didn't know I was going to be moving. I didn't know we were going to quarantine and that the Olympics were going to get postponed and everything. Everyone's in the same situation. It's been a crazy year, to say the least. But, I learned this a long time ago, and I never forgot it. Like, the first international trip that I went on, I learned that you got to just roll with the punches, right? Like, if you try to fight, like, things going wrong on a trip, it's going to make the trip so much harder. If you just roll with it, it's usually fine. And I feel like that's what I've had to do this year. Perry got the job out here, and I decided to change clubs and move out here as well. And it was really hard to leave Iowa. I loved it there, I felt like I really fit in there well. But, you got to do what you got to do. So I made the decision to follow Perry out here. And Arizona's been great. I really like the coaching staff, Zeke, Pritz, Molinaro. They're awesome guys. So it's been good. I decided, if we're not going to get any competitions this year, then I'm going to get better at wrestling. And, how often this is like a really positive way to look at it, but how often do we have like this much time to work on things? Like, even if you're wrestling in the grass, like me and Beck were hand fighting in the grass when we couldn't get it on any mats, you know what I mean? But how often do we have times like this where you can really work on like details and getting better? So that's been my focus all of quarantine, is just working on those finer things, really like evolving my wrestling so that when we do come out of this and we start getting back to a normal schedule, I'm going to come out better than when I went into quarantine.
Right, so you mentioned a few things I want to kind of touch on as we go. One of them being your move to Arizona. You mentioned Mark Perry got the job out there. So for you, was that as soon as he left, you were following him, or were there any other considerations going to other RTCs?
I got called by like a couple of people, like just when they heard like some stuff was going on in Iowa, and there was a possibility of us moving. I got a few texts and calls like, hey, if you want to come out here, we're more than welcome, and stuff like that. And I appreciate all of that, but at the end of the day, it ran down to Perry's, my coach. When I'm wrestling on the big stage, that's who's going to be in my corner, and I know that, and he knows that. So for me, I knew that at the end of the day, wherever he was going, whether it was Arizona State, if it had been Okie State or anywhere, right, I was going to go, and that was a really hard decision just because I loved Iowa. I loved everything about it there, and the training, the coaches, the community about it. But, it was a hard decision, but I think I did what was going to be best for me. And I've really enjoyed Arizona, just being out here a short time.
So you moved to Arizona, same as the rest of the Hawkeye wrestling girls. So that's Allie Reagan, Michaela Beck, Kayla Miracle. How did that help with transitioning to a completely new area for you, having everybody that you were so comfortable with going with you?
Yeah, I mean, that helps a lot. I remember when I was going into my freshman year of college or my sophomore year, and I was moving to a new school across the country, didn't know anyone. That's hard when you don't know anyone out there, and you got to start from scratch. So it definitely made the transition a little easier. But I mean, at the same time, I've had to move so many times, you just get used to it after a while. But it is nice knowing that I've got my little team that I had in Iowa with me here now, and it's grown into an even bigger team with the other RTC athletes that were already here, the other coaches. They got a good group here, so it's nice that everyone went and we're sticking together and we're just working on making each other better to accomplish what we want to accomplish.
So how has just Arizona been different from Iowa? Just in what ways? Climate, training, whatever.
Yeah, I mean it's night and day here. The Midwest, like as soon as we got here, the first thing I thought of was like, oh, this is a lot more like California. And I was like super excited. Just like it's sunny every day, Um, just good vibes. I did have to adjust again to like living in a city. I haven't really lived in a big city. Like Iowa City is pretty small, little college town, but here it's big. Like the Phoenix area is very like spread out. So this a little bit like faster pace of life I had to get used to again. But I mean, obviously climate's like night and day difference. This style, like with the programs, is obviously very different. I think everyone knows Iowa style, but Arizona State's much more technical, really athletic guys. They're quick as hell, like all of them. And Zeke, when he was world champion, he won the most technical wrestler of the year. So he's got just a whole nother repertoire of things that I can learn from him and how he wrestles. So I think it'd be cool to kind of blend those two styles, like the Iowa style and his technical style together. Um, and then just the day-to-day life, we're still training like we usually do, twice a day, getting after it. But the schedule's a little different. Like out here, we're much more individualized, which is really important in wrestling. I mean, it is an individual sport at the end of the day. And if you look at like just me, Allie, Kayla, Beck, we all wrestle very, very differently. So it's nice having that individual attention to help us grow.
I know Arizona kind of took a little longer to getting back to the mat because it was at a hot spot at one point. So I guess from the time you moved there until really being able to get on the mat, how were you guys kind of compensating for maybe no one-on-one or, contact, that kind of thing? What were you guys doing?
Um, so I got out here first, and Beck got out here right after me. Kayla and Allie came like maybe a couple weeks after that. So me and Beck even though we were a hot spot, like Lifetime Fitness was still open. So we got, a little membership to Lifetime Fitness, and we were just getting after it in there, like doing long weight circuits, cardio, swimming, sauna, just anything to start training semi-normal again. Um, Hand fighting in the grass, you know what I mean? Just something to simulate wrestling. Uh, so it was a little bit before we could actually get everything cleared, get all our COVID testing done, and get into a facility. So that sucked, but there's literally nothing you can do about it. So roll with the punches, make do with what you can. I mean, me and Beck were grinding in my garage with like one medicine ball and one Bulgarian bag and getting circuits in there, you know what I mean? So you just got to make do with what you got.
Yeah, and so just going back to something you mentioned earlier, just being a really big fan of Iowa City and how you loved your time out there, you're gonna get to go back soon. It looks like you're registered for senior national. So what was the decision making behind that? Considering obviously it's been super weird training wise. So yeah, what was the decision behind that and why go?
So we've been back on a normal training schedule, semi-normal training schedule now, like getting on the mat consistently. I've started working with Neuroforce One up in Scottsdale. That's strength speed and conditioning. That's been really great. So now that I've been on a pretty normal schedule, I'm ready for a competition. I've been ready for a while now. Just had to wait for something. This was the first thing that came up, and after not being off training, but being off from a competition schedule for so long, I was like, whatever it is, I'm wrestling at it. I don't care. This could have been Olympic trials. This could have been just some domestic tournament. It could have been international. I didn't care what it was. I was going to compete. I didn't care what weight class I was going to be at. Like, I just want to get on the mat. I just want to prep for a tournament. I want to go through that process. I want to get out on the mat. So that's really all it is. I mean, this tournament doesn't really count for anything. It's not like it's a qualifier or anything like that, but I just want to go compete. So that's really it. I just want to go compete. And we don't know what the fall is going to look like. We don't know if there's going to be winter tours. we don't know how long it's going to be before there is another competition. So I don't understand, like, why isn't everyone trying to go? You know what I mean? I saw the brackets or the sign up list, and it's kind of small still. And I thought like everybody in the country was going to want to wrestle with this just to go through that process. But, you know, I'll be there.
And so if I'm understanding right, I should know this. It's just Olympic weights at that event, correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
And it's
so
plus
you'll be,
two. They just announced it's +2.
right, so you'll be up at 68 kilos?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess just, have you had a tournament at 68 yet in this year?
I mean, December when the Open was in Dallas, I wrestled 68, and then I wrestled at Euregan at the end of January, and it was 68 +2 for Euregan. And then since then, I haven't gotten to wrestle at anything, so just those 2 tournaments.
Yeah, so moving up a weight class, is that difficult for you? Do you need to put on weight? What does that look like in making that change from 65 to 68?
Sometimes I wish I had to put on weight, but we all know that I like to cut weight. So going up to 68, I mean, it's no different. I don't think I'm going to look quite as sucked out as when I was at 65. But I've definitely, I think I've filled into the weight well. Of course, I'm still going to cut a little bit, but what's new, right? But I think I filled in the weight well. I feel really strong. I feel good. I feel solid. So I'm excited for it. I think it's nice to feel a little bit better when I'm working out compared to when I was making 65.
Yeah, so with the tournaments that you did in December in Euregan, was there much of a difference as far as how the other girls felt being up at another weight class?
Yeah, I think it's 65. That's the cutoff between the still really athletic wrestling, like how middleweights are, and then 68 and up is where you get a little bit more into the big girl style of wrestling. It's a little bit slower. Everyone's got a lot more power. So that's an adjustment making, knowing everyone's gonna wrestle a little bit different than maybe what I'm used to at 65. But I mean, I'm still doing what I want to do. I'm still getting better, and I think that shows, and it will show when I finally get to compete next weekend. But yeah, I'm good with it. I feel good here.
Very cool. And just to kind of go off of something that you said earlier with the postponement of the Olympics, you were talking about, have we ever had this much time? So how has this postponement kind of helped you chase those Olympic dreams or made those more realistic for you?
I mean, every year, I think I'm one of those athletes, and starting wrestling a lot later than most people, every year I get better. And I've had, you can look at it as like, oh my gosh, a whole nother year. Like, I was ready to do it now. I'm looking at it as a whole nother year to get better. Like, if 2020, April 2020 Forrest and April 2021 Forrest were going to wrestle each other, I guarantee the 21 would whoop the 20's ass. Sorry, excuse my language. I'm going to be a lot better next year in April than I was this year in April. I can guarantee it. That's a whole year of continuing to build my conditioning, build my strength, build my cardio, all of that kind of stuff. And then just the technical aspect of it, like I said earlier, evolving my wrestling. I'm not just a brute who just likes to try to beat people up. Like, there's a lot more technical skill that you may not see that goes into what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to accomplish, like in my wrestling and my type of style. So that's a whole lot of time for me to work on that, and really grind it in.
Right, and we know that Tamara Mensah-Stock is in the finals of the Olympic trials at your weight. So knowing that that's ultimately the person that you have to beat, I know that there's others in front of that match, but ultimately that's the person you have to beat to make the Olympic spot. Without giving away too much, what are some things that you've kind of been focusing on, knowing that she's ultimately the last one to go through?
I mean, I'm excited for that match. Honestly, I don't think I've wrestled Mensah in like a competition match. since like my freshman year of college or something, like way long ago. Like we've wrestled at camp and stuff, but a competition's different. And I mean, I really don't want to give a lot away, but it's going to be exciting to watch. It's going to be a war. And, you know, you just got to be ready for that because no one wrestles like I do. I can guarantee that.
And then I'll kind of wrap up with this one, just because we're in such a weird year. You and I had talked about this before the call. Worlds, there's the potential of a senior world championships at the end of the year. Right. We don't really know. We kind of have a feeling of where that's going. The official announcement will be next week. But up until this point, like, what's the attitude or what's the approach that you take with that, knowing that something as big as world championships could be on the horizon, maybe not, maybe so? How do you approach that?
This is actually like a mindset thing that I learned in Iowa. I was talking to Tom about it I think it was after 19 Worlds. I forget what it was, but he's like, this is like your competition level when you're peaking. And when you're off, you're right here. There's not that much of a difference that you got to make up to be in competition state. And to put it in like fewer words, you're always ready. Like I understand there's the peaking process and you have to do it right, but I don't let myself, you know, get so out of shape I can't make it through a 6-minute match, or I'm 30 pounds over, or something crazy like that. You know what I mean? You give me a week, 2 weeks, I'll be ready. I'll be at that top form. And that's just because it's a constant thing. There's no, like when you're wrestling at our level, there's no such thing as like season. This is all year. This is a lifestyle. This is what we do, you know? So whether there is worlds or not in December, if there is, I'll be ready. Like, give me the call, let me know where it's at, I'll be there. You know what I mean? I'll be ready to go. And I think that's just a mindset and a discipline kind of thing in your lifestyle.
With this year, did you at all have any trouble keeping that mindset with the way that
Oh yeah, I mean, it was just there was trouble with it, and the fact that I was very frustrated at the world because there was absolutely nothing I could do to change my situation. Like, I'm not someone, like, if you don't like something, if something's not working for you, you do something about it. That's just how I function. There was literally nothing I could do to change the COVID situation, to change the fact that everything got postponed or canceled. So in that sense, it was very frustrating. But then I took some time to reflect. I was actually doing a podcast with Barry Davis as well. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to use this time to get better. I'm not going to be sour about it because that's just a waste of time and energy. I'm going to get better through this quarantine because I've got all this time to work on stuff. So, I mean, yeah, and I know everyone was in the same position as me, you know, when really early in quarantine, when we almost couldn't get in anywhere to train, you know, and you're actually like in your garage, like, this is all I have. But again, it's a mindset thing, and when it sucks and when you're facing adversity, that's when you got to get tougher, and you got to just, you know, put your head down and work through it.
Right. So basically, that's really all I have. I don't know if there's anything else that you kind of want to catch people up on, or if there's a way that you want to share how they can follow you on social media.
I know a lot of people have been like, when all these cards that are going on, like the flow cards, I know Hawkeye's having one, Penn State just had one, and people keep messaging me like, why isn't Forrest wrestling and this and that? Like, I promise, guys, I'm gonna get on a card at some point. You know, the timing has to be right. I think people forget I just moved and all that, and they don't realize like the training situation's got to be right. You don't just walk into a card with an extremely high level wrestler not training. You know what I mean? Like, that's not how you, as a professional, that's not how you prepare for something like that. So don't worry, guys. I'm working on getting on a card. We will see Snowflake on the mat at some point, whether it's next weekend or maybe after that. I'm trying to get on one. If you guys want to follow me, social media, my Instagram is Forrest _AKA _Snowflake. Twitter, my handle is @mynameisunderspace_jungle.
All right, perfect. Well, thanks for joining us and giving us that card update, because yeah, I'm sure a lot of people have been wondering. So
I'm working on it. I promise. I'm working on it.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and we can't wait to see you next week competing in Iowa.
Awesome. Thanks, Taylor.